It's widely regarded as an army of terror, one that has blazed a violent path across large parts of Iraq, Syria, and Libya. But it's also a business. In its early days, Daesh, known as the Islamic State in Iraq at the time, generated between $1 to $2 million a year. Most of those funds came from wealthy donors in primarily Gulf countries. At its peak in late 2014, early 2015, Daesh was making $4 to $5 million per day, or $1.5 billion a year, most of which came from taxation of its members and oil. At its height, Daesh produced about 50,000 barrels a day through small mobile wells, fetching somewhere between 35 to 50% of the market price for its oil. Other funding sources included kidnappings and the illegal sale of antiquities. Daesh's economy enables it to arm its fighters, and in some cases, commission attacks in other countries. It's been almost a month since the mass shooting at the Reina nightclub just behind me. Some of the New Year's revelers jumped in the icy waters of the Bosphorus to take refuge from the gunman's wrath. But the man said to have done it reportedly fits more the profile of a hitman than a typical ideologue, raising questions about how Daesh contracts out its hits and the financial incentives involved for Daesh mercenaries. Turkish authorities found nearly $200,000 on the gunman, Abdul Kadir Masharipov, after his arrest. And while it's not known what exactly the money was for, there have been reports that Daesh pays upwards of $50,000 each to fighters to launch an attack.
We can see that their ideological backgrounds are weak when we compare them to their counterparts in the Al-Qaeda. It is like the pop lovers and the jazz lovers. The jazz lovers have some ideology, some style. Pop lovers are like trendful things. They don't need some ideology. They are living with rhythm, and it's so easy to, I can say, join a caravan of the pop.
Even though Daesh is on the back foot militarily, it doesn't necessarily lessen the threat of foreign attacks. Daesh's strength from its genesis seems to be that it feeds on instability, both of people and places, something which makes putting the group permanently out of business a difficult task. Randolph Nogle, The Newsmakers.
To discuss this, I'm joined by economist Loretta Napoleoni from London. She's an expert on terror financing and author of Merchants of Men, How Jihadists and ISIS Turned Kidnapping and Refugee Trafficking into a multi-billion-dollar business. Also from London, Florence Keane. She's a research analyst with the Center for Financial Crime and Security Studies at the international defense think tank RUSI. Thanks, both of you, for joining us. Loretta, let's start with you. They might use these medieval tactics, particularly when killing people, whether beheadings, burning alive, and so on. But does that mask the fact that they're a very modern organization and perhaps we might underestimate them?
Yes, they are a very modern organization. We're seeing the use of social media, the use also the manipulation of those images that you said clearly were medieval, but still, they went all over the world because of the way they have been able to manipulate social media. So I wouldn't dismiss them as we did with the Taliban. These people live in the 21st century and know very well 21st century technology.
And there might be, Florence, this idea that you have like Baghdadi brainwashing thousands of these sort of zombies who would follow him ideologically. But is that wrong? I mean, do they operate more like a corporation?
I mean, I think there's a very fine balance. So, of course, you see people ideologically motivated. More recently, particularly with the terrorist attack in Turkey, there have been reports that there was some outsourcing or that a big sum of money was paid to a more professional fighter. I think it's quite hard to determine exactly the reasoning behind it yet until more comes out. But certainly, it seems like substantial funds were located in where the terrorists had been. So, yeah.
Loretta, tell me about the difference or the different levels of the different fighters. So, for example, you have those who are doing it because they truly believe in it, and then you have sort of guns for hire. What sort of percentage do we know of, if we do?
Well, I think it's very difficult to find out exactly how many people do it for an ideology and how many people do it for the money. I mean, one thing for sure is that every single armed organization always use guns for hire. Now, the difference between motivation and money sometimes is very little, meaning, the boundaries are very blurred. I think today they're probably using guns for hire more than they did in 2014, because they're trying to hit Europe. They're trying to hit outside the caliphate. And it's not easy to indoctrinate people quickly, but also it's not easy to indoctrinate professional. So they need people who are professional. So I would say that at the moment, possibly, they're using more guns for hire than they did before.
Interesting. Loretta, how rich are they? How wealthy are they? Can we quantify that?
I think the Islamic State is still quite wealthy in terms of cash. And also, I think they have quite a lot of money outside the caliphate, money that they use for these guns for hire. So I don't think we're approaching the moment in which they will look for sponsors again, in which they will go back to what they were in 2012, a group seeking money and offering to fight for the sponsor. They still control a large chunk of Syria, an area rich in resources. They have also expanded some territory. They reconquest Palmyra, for example. So I would be very careful in saying it's over because Mosul almost has fallen.
Florence, what's the secret to their, I guess I should say, diabolical success over the likes of, say, Al-Qaeda? Why are they better than the likes of Al-Qaeda have been over the past couple decades?
I mean, I think their ability to really inspire, not just within their sort of territory, but the way they're able to act and direct attacks from abroad. And I think that the kind of traditional counter-terrorist finance kind of approach is to really disrupt them in their own territory, which is obviously important. But I think that really sometimes the most imminent threat, particularly for countries like Turkey who lie close to Syria and Iraq, is that kind of threat from returning fighters or from domestically inspired fighters. So I think really understanding the kind of financial behaviours domestically as well as within ISIS-controlled territory is critical.
A final question for you, Loretta. Is this a generational war? Are they going to roll over and die anytime soon?
Oh, absolutely not. I think if we do not solve this problem, meaning if we do not pacify the area through proper negotiation, I think we will see the next generation rise from the refugees camps which are scattered around the Middle East at the moment. This is going to be an ideal breeding ground for the next generation. So I would strongly push yet again for a diplomatic solution and absolutely not a bombing solution as has been done so far, by the previous US administration.
Fairly pessimistic outlook. Florence, do you share that pessimism?
I do share it. I think it's a generational thing. I think it's an ideological thing that's taking root. And I think that, as Loretta says, just bombing and carrying on in a kind of, warlike way, isn't the solution. We need to understand the root cause of the problem and look for a diplomatic way.
Okay, Loretta Napoleoni and Florence Keane, it's been great to talk to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us.